Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Creation Misculture, and today it's another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. So we've completed the primary colors a while ago and now we're working on the secondary colors. So we're working with ultraviolet, and today we're going to be adding a carabine blue into ultraviolet and see if ultraviolets survive more than two colors. Who knows? So the goal of the series is truly to explore color theory with the primary colors and the secondary colors that are in the Dharma Trading Co. starter pack, because that way you can learn a little bit more and you don't have to splurge a whole lot of money on different dyes that you don't know if you are going to like. And that way you can just understand, have a better understanding on how everything works together and how the colors work well and nicely together. So without further ado, let's get into this. Welcome back to another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. So we've already completed the primary colors triangle, and now we're working our way through the secondary colors. So we are currently working on violet. What we've already done is add yellow to our ultraviolet, and we've already also added red. So what we're going to be doing today is add carabine blue to our ultraviolet and see what happens there. So what we're going to do first is do our stock solutions. So I still have some left over from when I added the red to my ultraviolet. So now I just need to make a 1% stock solution of my carabine blue. What is a 1% stock solution, you may ask? It is a 1%, so 1 gram of dry powder for 100 milliliter of water. So you make sure that your water is nice and hot, so that way you can dissolve it properly and there won't be any like crumbs and clumps in it. But first thing first is safety. Make sure that you are wearing a respirator whenever you're manipulating the dry powder. As soon as this is open, please ensure that you have a mask on. It doesn't have to be this specific brand. It can be any brand as long as it will filter the small particles, because this is a very volatile dry powder and we only have one pair of lungs, so please protect it. Okay, let's get to this stuff. Okay, so we need 1 gram of carabine blue. Wow, I'm doing good lately. So you can see that there's quite a bit of clumps. This is why you need to have hot water in here. You could also use a milk frother. Oh, yeah. Milk frother could probably help with the dry clumps a little bit more than just my little tiny spoon. You can see we're doing good. And why am I making 1% stock solution is simply because it makes the math easier, because we're working with 10 gram mini skeins of fingering straw weight from Knit Picks. So it's just, if you want a 1% depth of shade on a 10 gram mini skeins, you know that you will need 10 milliliter of your 1% stock solution. So it's just to make the math easier. And what we're doing is called swatching. So we're swatching the color on the mini skeins instead of using the paper towel, because the paper towel can lie, first of all. And sometimes there's some colors that you will absolutely need to have the citric acid and the heat, both of those, to see the true color of it. So it's just because it's a chemical reaction and everything. So this is why I like to swatch on the beanie skeins instead of the paper towel. The paper towel, don't get me wrong, it can be very helpful to have an idea of what it's going to look like. However, your paper towel is often wider than what your skeins are because there is a cream undertone. It's not pure white the way that we're doing it because the yarn usually is not pure white. It's naturally ivory cream. Sometimes it's gray. So this is why I find it important to do it on the fingerings, on the mini skeins. So we're going to do 1% stock solution for 1% depth of shades of the ultraviolet in each of those. So it's going to be 10 milliliter in each of them. And after that, we're going to be adding the Caribbean blue. Okay, so we have 1% depth of shades for each of them. And now we're going to be adding the Caribbean blue from 0.05% depth of shade up to 1% depth of shades of the Caribbean blue. So that way I have a good understanding of how the colors interact with each other. 0.5 milliliter, 1 milliliter, 2.5 milliliter. And we know that the Caribbean blue is quite potent, so it's also going to be an interesting exercise to see how potent it will be with the ultraviolet. 5 milliliter, 7.5, and 10 milliliter of our Caribbean blue. And we do not have any citric acid as of right now in our mason jars. We only have tap water in them. So that way, when the yarn will be in the mason jars, there will be more space, more time. It will take, since we don't have any citric acid as of right now, it's going to take a little bit longer for the color to strike the yarn. Once we incorporate the citric acid, the color will start striking. And once we apply the heat, this is when the color will be able to start setting into the skeins. So the longer it takes for the color to be striking and setting, the more coverage you should obtain, basically. So it's actually quite interesting to see. So we're going to probably obtain a more cool toned color. So because of the Caribbean blue. So that should be an interesting contrast. Ooh, yeah, we're already in the blue now. So this, when we talk about potency, this is why what I mean as well. And I'm not surprised that the Caribbean blue is starting to take over already with our 0.25% depth of shade because it's quite potent. And I'm kind of already expecting also some sort of bleeding when it comes to washing the excess off, because Caribbean blue is one of those colors that always bleeds. No matter what I do, the more you have of it, the chances of bleeding is higher. And what we're doing right now is opening up the skeins to make sure that all the strands can have access to the dye, and also to make sure that there is an even coverage and there's not pocket of resist in there. And it's also why I prefer to dye my tonals in pot rather than in the pans, because there's more volume of water and it's not as crowded, so there's less resistance in the water for the skeins to obtain the dye. Okay, so now that's done, it's going to go into the double boiler. Let's turn this on. So you want the water to reach between 85 to 95 Celsius for the color to set properly. So once it's reached that temperature, you usually can count half an hour, and you're technically it should be good to go. For with when you have blue, sometimes it can take up to 45 minutes for the water to fully strike the yarn, which is fair. But longer than 45 minutes is not necessarily the best option, because you encounter chances of the yarn to burn basically, and the integrity of the yarn will be compromised. We still do not have any citric acid as of right now. I'm going to wait at least 15 minutes for first the water to slowly get warmer, but also for to give a chance of the color to strike slower and just like reach every little strands of yarn, and then we're going to be adding the citric acid. So I will see you in 15 minutes. Okay, so we're going to be adding the citric acid. Okay. So the temperature is not quite there yet, so we're going to check it out a little bit later, and we're going to be as soon as I'm blue now. Anyways, as soon as we've hit the 85 to 95 Celsius, we're going to do a countdown of 30 minutes to let the yarn cook, and after that, we're going to double check to make sure that the yarn has struck properly and that it's like properly done and probably set. And I will see you in like about half an hour. Okay, let's take a look at this yarn. Okay, so there's still a tiny bit of blue, which I was expecting. Caribbean blue needs time to settle off a little bit when it just needs a little time to settle off. So what we can do is double check the acidity, but I know that the acidity is good because I already checked it. The temperature is right. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the heat out. This is hot. And we're going to let it slowly strike through time. Blue is one of the colors that will finish to strike and finish to settle during that like time the time period at the end where they will like settle properly. So what we're going to do is letting this cool off for the rest of the day, because it's going to take a little longer to cool off. Once it's completely cooled off, we're going to wash the excess dyes. And since there's Caribbean blue, I already know what we're going to be working a little bit harder to get the skeins completely cleaned off, and that's okay with me because I know and I'm prepared mentally to do it. So we will see you when it's time to let this cool off, to be able to wash it. So see you in a bit. Okay, can you guess if we're going to have any bleeding for this one? Because we have Caribbean blue and we have it in the high quantities. And what we usually have with Caribbean blue is as soon as we hit like 0.5% depth of shades, we're starting to see leftover colors in the dye bath, and we start to see bleeding happening in when we're washing the excess off. So I feel like Caribbean blue is one of those colors that is extremely saturated naturally, very vibrant, and depending, I'm not exactly certain of what kind of pigment there is in Caribbean blue to create this very vibrant color. However, I know that one of those pigments is a non-bleeder, and I always have issues, and I always need to wash off like a few times to make sure that I have removed all excess. So this is what we're expecting with this situation. I will show you also the mason jars. There was a little bit of color. There was a very subtle hint of blue in the water. So this is why I'm always expecting to have some bleeding when it comes to Caribbean blue, especially when I know that I have a higher concentration than 5% depth of shade. It's just part of life, and when you know that, it's good because you don't set yourself up for deception. And you know that you're going to be working a little bit harder for this, which is fine. Also, what we're going to do after finishing off washing the excess dyes is we're going to put those in the spin dryer to remove all of the water, and we're going to be letting it dry overnight, and we're going to be able to see the result in a moment. And I'm also going to be showing you the mason jars that will be in a second. So here they are, and you can already see the tiny bit of blue at the end. And here's the result of adding the carabiner blue. Oops, I made a mistake. This is supposed to go like this. Okay, we're good. Okay, of adding carabiner blue to our ultraviolet. And as you can see, carabiner blue wants to be the main character no matter what. So this is also a good exercise in potency to see how little it took for the carabiner blue to become the main character, because here we have a slight periwinkle, and the next one it's like a midnight blue, and right over there it's almost becoming indigo because carabiner blue wants to be the first. Carabiner blue is just like, nope, this is my show now. So this is just a friendly reminder that carabiner blue is intense and to use it with care. So if you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye!